Neteru Kesbet, the Blue Nile, comes out of Lake Tana in Kush, or Kash, now called Ethiopia, and the Neteru Hedge, or the so-called White Nile, coming out of the Victoria Nyanza in central equatorial Africa. Now, these two rivers together, rivers are typically referred to as Neteru. However, they differentiate between these two by calling one the White Nile, coming out of central equatorial Africa, and the Blue Nile, coming out of Lake Tana. They meet together at Khartoum in the place now called Sudan. We used to call it Kenset, and from there it flows down to the lotus tributaries of the great Green Sea, now called the Mediterranean. I need to add that it seems as if the yearly menstruation of our river took place once a year, and there seems to have been a connection between something that was taking place cosmically, the rise of the star Ast Sepedet, known as Potolo to the Dogon, known as Sirius today. Once it rose in the eastern horizon, every year, approximately 3 to 4 days after, the river would start to swell and would then begin to inundate the thirsty lands down to the northern region of the nation. It was at this place that we see this connection between heaven and earth, that this yearly cosmic event brought about HAPI. By the way, HAPI means a dual vital force. Hap means one force. HAPI means two forces, these two rivers. And here's something interesting that you will not read in any book. These two rivers correspond to the two women, Ast and her sister Nebethet, who brought the body of Asar together again. Now, if you look at Asar's body as the soil, which is parched and dry and split apart by the heat of the summer, you can understand now how these two rivers now coming together and meeting at Khartoum, they cooperated together and they went down to the parched delta to bring the body of Asar as the Neteru, as the river, back together again, to restore the food supply of the nation.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the HAPI Talks. Tonight, we have no other than the legendary Baaba Heru with us to talk about the application of culture, the application of Nile Valley culture in its practice. There's no other brother here, on this, especially in the Western Hemisphere, that has done more in terms of introducing the culture and its application to our people. So, with no other further ado, we give you Baaba Heru.
Tepu, Tuau and Tira, give thanks to the divine Mother Father of all creation. Tak, it's an honor to be on the same screen with you, my brother. The great producer of the river film known as HAPI. You know, it's a wonderful thing that we are now in the age of HAPI, which is the name for Aquarius in our legacy. If you go up the temple of Dendera at the ceiling, you will see the zodiac, and you will see that HAPI is shown as an androgynous being with the teats of a female, the pregnant enceinte belly of a woman, but he's male, which explains that what we're experiencing today in these days and times with androgynous confusion is part of the cosmic law that ordains that things are shifting from the 6,000 years of patriarchy. We are now coming to a more sustained balance in this age of HAPI, that dual force of masculine and feminine coming together to establish Yes. So we're having a little distraction here. Okay. So yes, my brother, I'm happy to be on this evening here with you. And now you may want to know, well, who is this guy? Who is Baaba
So,
Heru?
but Bob Heru, before you go into that, I just want you
Yes.
to take a step back and go to what you were saying about the balance of the masculine and feminine. Why is that so important? Because that's where you were headed. You were talking about we're going to the age of HAPI, that HAPI represents the age of balance. Could you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Definitely. This age, as I said before, is an androgynous age, and um, everybody knows that everybody have heard about the yin and yang. Our ancestors called it Smai Tawi, unity of the two regions. There's what you would call a complementary balance between the masculine and feminine energies in the universe. For the last 6,000 years, we've had a patriarchal order, which was ordained cosmically. You had Taurus, male bull. You had Aries, male ram. And of course, coming with the age of Pisces, you had a lessening of that preponderance of masculine force. However, it still sustained itself because of the 4,000 years that it had been previous reigning. So now, in this age, Hapi is not only the name of the age we are in, which they call Aquarius. It's not only the name of the river Nile in its inundation, but it's also the name of the guardian of the lungs. In the resting places of our ancestors, Hapi guarded the lungs. And it's interesting because this age is an air age where the balance must be restored. We, as a people who are matrilineal and matrifocal in culture, we have been invested in the worship of a male deity that has no wife. In our legacy, everything is balanced. And that sacred balance we must restore once again. It's not idea that the man is above the woman or the woman is above the man. In our legacy, when you look at the names of As and Asa, the first earthborn Neteru, they both have thrones in their name, indicating there's a throne of the king and the throne of the queen, which means that's balance. So that's the order that we establish in our relationships today. As a matter of fact, my good, I call them my mentors and my teachers now, Jabari and Anika Osaze. They were my students, but they're now teaching me. I did their wedding ceremony, and I noticed that they, about 20 some odd years ago, and I noticed that they just did a wedding ceremony, and they call it a Smai Tawi, the union of the two, union of the masculine and the feminine. And that is how we have brought the legacy into living practice, using terms of our culture to identify who and what we are and what we are doing. And that's something that's so necessary because our tongues have been colonized to name certain things with the names of those who have enslaved us. We even carry some of those names. But those of us who are aware and conscious, we can also have our secret names that aligns us with our ancient ancestry. But to come back to this divine balance that has to be restored, I'm asking our sisters and our brothers to shift your attitudes, because whether you like it or not, this age is going to restore Ma'at. This is the age of Hapi, Sekhmet Ma'at. Now, Hapi is, of course, the age, as I said, of air. And Sekhmet is the healer. We are going through a tremendous healing, not just here in America, but throughout the world. And you will notice that the Asar who was strangled on the sidewalk, our beloved brother George Floyd, became the Asar sacrifice for this age. And it has set off something in the consciousness of so many people throughout the world. The shame of it is that the world has seen what African people have been saying for years about what they've been undergoing here, in Amenta. And now we see a shift taking place. But I think we're headed for some very serious and dark times, and I hope we are ready for it. But the illumination of this age is going to bring about a shift that we had better be prepared for, and we had better get ready for it, because it's a very serious shift taking place.
So
Now, go ahead.
I'm sorry, no, finish your thought.
Oh, I'm done with that
Okay,
part.
so divine balance. Why is it so important to us? Why should we seek this balance in our lives?
Well, because we have been unbalanced for a long time. Even in our in our bloodstream, we are too highly acidic. The balance of acid and alkaline must be maintained if you want to be healthy. And the problem is that because we live in a culture that proliferates the eating of sugar, of starchy foods, of things that clog up the prostate gland, clog up the intestines, we find ourselves suffering from tremendous levels of constipation of the mind and the behind. And so the time has come for us to restore the balance within the body temple. And when you reflect on the fact that many of the temples in Kemet were built on the template of the human body, then you realize that this body that we have is a divine and sacred temple that we must maintain in balance. We must, especially us men, your sperm is supposed to be alkaline. But if you're eating a lot of flesh foods, if you're eating a lot of starch, if you're eating a lot of sugar, drinking a lot of booze, smoking a lot of cigarettes, you will have acidic sperm, and you are going to be poisoning our women. I warn our women, when you see that man approaching you with that pot belly, know that constipation is going to cause some problems. Because, no, this is not funny, this is serious business.
Oh, I'm with you.
I even tell women, carry the strip of your alkaline strips with you to test the saliva. Oh, he wants to give you a kiss? Well, what's the condition of his saliva? You see, you have to protect your bodies, beloved sisters. And that's why it was an honor for me to assist my then wife, Queen Afua, in writing the book, Sacred Women. And many men, I've written apart some passages in that book for men specifically, so they can bring themselves to order. Another thing I want to say along the line of male-female relationships is everybody is complaining about the level of abortions in our race. And I invite our men, because it's not fair that the woman many times must carry the decision to abort and must go, and she carries a lot of pain having to do that. So I insist that our men practice what I call seed flow mastery. You must be the master of the flow of your seed. We are bringing too many oops babies into the world. So we must begin to control the power of our loins. We must learn how to practice the art of seed cultivation so that we can retain this divine elixir of life for our own benefit instead of spilling it all over the place like we are having a water gun fight. You know what I mean? There's too much of that going on. So I encourage all of us to seek balance, get more into the greens, get more into the water, alkaline waters, get into more, as Sebi speaks about, electrical foods. It's a very serious business. You cannot win the war eating the foods of your slave masters. Notice how obese they are, and we are following them in that same profile. When you look at the temple walls of Kemet, when you look at the papyri throughout the museums, you see that your ancestors were slim in the belly. There's only one that I saw was somewhat portly. They call him, I think they call him Sheikh el Beled, because he was named after the mayor of the town. I forgot the name of the town, but that one statue of Sheikh el Beled is the only one that I saw with a tremendous girth. So I want to encourage us, all of us, to watch what we take into this divine temple. And a little later on in this session, I will explain even deeper the reason why we must do this. And there's a ritual known as the opening of the way that calls us to remember how to take care of this divine temple. I'm going to speak about the Mesu Heru, the so-called canopic jars that our ancestors used to put into the burial places of our ancient ancestors. They used to preserve 4 organ groups: the lungs in one jar, small intestines in another, the liver in another jar, and the stomach and large intestines in another jar. I'm saying that they were telling us something of how to preserve our organs in life. And they use the death ritual to teach us that, and they left us that guide. And so I created the opening of the way to acknowledge this part of our being and the necessity for us to take care of our divine temple. As a matter of fact, when you come into this Kemetic legacy, you're entering into a hall of pure light. So if you want light, you got to get light. Light in spirit, not just in body, but light in spirit likewise. Now, someone here said I should talk about Kemet. Well, we're gonna deal with Kemet, but Kemet is just the northeastern section of an entire nation known as Smai Karwi, and that's another thing. We must begin to speak of Smai Karwi. The United Two Regions is not just what the Egyptologists refer to as Upper and Lower Egypt. No, Smaitawi is the unity of heaven and earth, the unity of the masculine and feminine, the unity of the hard and the soft, the hot and the cold. All these complements in nature represents Smaitawi. We were united north and south in the Nile Valley. Now we're going to be united east and west. We're going to create the perfect cross, the equilateral cross, because we must now have a Eastern perspective. And later on, I want to talk about, and I shared this with Brother Kaba, speaking about how the map makers always want us to look at the earth with the north being on the top. When you put the north on the top, then of course Europe is on top of Africa, when you look at it from that perspective. Now we have the scholars reacting to the north-south orientation. They turn the map upside down, so South Africa is at the top of the page. Both are wrong for an African. Our concern should never be the North Pole or the South Pole. Our concern should be the solar pole, the paths of Ra, the equatorial line between the tropics of Kepra and Kunum, known as Cancer and Capricorn today. This should be our focus. So when you turn the map around, so the Horn of Africa, Somalia region, is at the top of your page, you will be looking at the continent from the same perspective that it rolls towards the sun every morning. It's not sunrise, it's more like earth turn, you see. So that concept of looking at the Africa, looking at our legacy from the Eastern perspective, the paths of the sun, not the ice of the north or the ice of the south, but the paths of Ra. When we do that, because you're dealing with a globe moving around in space, you can choose to look at it from any perspective. Why does it always have to be with the north on top and the south to the bottom? No, let's get north off us to the left, as Beyonce would say, and and let us reorient our thought forms dealing with the light of Ra, the sun.
Okay. So, Baaba Heru, I just want to just acknowledge those who are in the building. There are a lot of people here that came out for this tonight, and we want to show our gratitude to them by definitely saying, Uncle Ma'at, thank you very much. Dua. We also want to tell people, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to us on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also on Facebook to see more content like this. HAPI Talks every week is coming up with some more profound information. So with that said, Baaba Heru, I just want to just kind of take it back to the beginning. We started off with a home run, like first pitch home run, kind of knocked out the park. And we got really, really, really into it, the conversation. I want to take it back a second and just kind of talk briefly about who is Baaba Heru. Just tell us about your experience as a person and your transition to a Kemetic priest.
Okay. Well, I was blessed to have a father who was a follower of Marcus Garvey. He joined the Garvey movement in San Pedro de Macorís on the island of Quisqueya, now miscalled the Dominican Republic, after a Catholic priest who used to burn women at the stake. So when I tell people that I was born in Quisqueya, they say, "Where's that?" I say, "Oh, they call it the Dominican Republic today." But I was brought from there by my mother when I was 7 months old, because the police chief of the town was in love with my mother, but she was married to my father, and he tried to kill my father a couple of times. And finally, the padre of the parish came and told my mother that she should leave my father because he was too black. And so she came home crying with me inside of her womb, and she said she never received so many kicks from the three girls that came before I did. And so um, when I grew up, I kept on, whenever I would pass a Roman church, I would cross the street. I never wanted to go near a Roman church. And I would ask my mother, I said, "What is it with me and the Catholic Church?" She said, "Well," and then she told me the story of what the Catholic priest told her while I was in her womb. So from day one, I seemed to know who the enemy was. And my father, being a Garveyite, he schooled me very early in the precepts of Marcus Garvey. His not just what they call the Back to Africa movement, but the claiming of African consciousness. And so I came, I would say, into this world already woke, as they say. And from there, I was given a charge by my father when I was about 7 years old. He gave me a password. He said, "I'm going to give you this password. It's Tutank Amen." When I heard that name, I got chills. And every time I tell the story, the same thing happens. I tell the story every time I get a chance, because what you tell a child can have an impression upon how that child grows up to his old age. And so as I came to America when I was about 17, 18 years old, and immediately I began to study my brothers and sisters here, because where I grew up, everybody that I dealt with looked like me. So they were talking about Black Power. Well, I already knew what that was, because even the lady that we bought our kerosene oil from for our lamps, because we didn't have electricity in my village, she looked like me. The people we bought our cloth from, my father was a tailor, looked like me. So I knew Black Power before it became a thing during the Civil Rights era with Stokely Carmichael. And that is what prompted me. As I grew up, I kept on studying more about this Nile Valley culture. And I became a New York City police officer. And while pounding the beat, I met a man. I stopped into this jewelry store, and I met this elder, and I began to talk to him. And I told him I would like to learn how to trabajo en la plata, how to work silver, because I always was fascinated with silver. And so he had a 10-family house in Williamsburg, and he said, "You come whenever you're off. You come to my shop in the basement, and I will teach you." And so from day one, I said, well, if I'm going to start to learn how to make jewelry, I only want to make those things that had meaning and significance, because I feel that our body temple is too precious to be wearing frivolous things in our bodies, especially the names of slave masters that we are so proud to wear their brands again. We pay to be branded again, and I don't think that's a nice thing for us to wear other people's brands on us. We should wear our own brands, our own culture. And this is how I began from day one. Of course, my family was angry with me because they said, "Give the people what they want." I said, "No, I'm going to give them what they need if it kills me." And it almost did. I have a story to tell at another time, how the stress of trying to teach our people to want emblems of our culture, emblems of our legacy, And I'm going to speak about, Taki, how we have missed the boat, but we are catching up. So it's all is not lost. There is something very fabulous coming around the corner, and it's already here, you see. And I'm going to share how we are going to. Oh, my daughter just came in. Hi, beloved.
She's leaving. She'll be back tomorrow.
Oh, you're leaving?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Marry you too, beloved. Carry on. All right. Yeah, that's my daughter, Kamena. And yes, okay. So bring me back to where I was, Taki. What are we
So
talking about?
you were saying that the teaching the legacy almost killed you because
Oh, yeah.
your family was against you doing it, but you said, "I'm gonna teach this if it kills, even if it kills me."
Oh, yeah. And so, as I said, so the very first thing I did, the elder and I became partners, and we got a little room on the Bowery right next to Canal Street. And he was going to quit his job because he used to work on 47th Street with the rich people where the largest jewelry district is in New York City. And he was going to quit his job that Friday and come in that Monday to work with me. Well, on Sunday, I got a call from his beloved wife that he had passed because he had high blood pressure. And he used to say to me, I don't have time for you to do anything. Just watch me. Watch everything I do and take notes. So it wasn't until I came back from his funeral that I casted my first piece. I was sculpting a lion's head. I wanted to make a buckle, and I casted my first piece. And when I did the casting using the lost wax process, and I saw the ears of the lion emerging out of the flask, I said, "Oh my!" I dropped to my knees and I thanked Anacleto Santiago de Colon for the gift that he gave me to work with my hands, because I did not know that I could sculpt anything. He bought me the tools, he bought me the wax, he bought me the tools. Dental tools and surgical tools is what jewelers use to carve their creations. And so I began to sculpt only those things that had meaning. I did a whole things of the zodiac line. I began to create bangles. You know the West Indian bangles that you get with little knobs that women like to wear, about 12 and 20 of them on each arm. Instead of putting little knobs on them or cocoa pods, I used ankhs, I used pyramids, I used the eyes of Heru, I used scarabs, and the Jinyame symbol, the Sankofa symbol of West Africa, the Jinyame and Sankofa symbol, Miwari Wo. All the symbols of our ancestry is what became part of what I do. And so instead of making an engagement rings with the little prongs look like a devil is grabbing the diamond, I use ankhs to hold up the stone. I use the feathers of ma'at to hold up the stone. And in a little while, I'll show you some of the detail of my work, because my work are meditations. And I get into it, and sometimes when I'm finished, I don't remember having sculpted it. It's amazing. People come in and they say, "You did this for me 25 years ago." I said, "I did?" And I'm looking, oh yeah, that's right. I did do that. So because I do my work in a spirit of possession, that's all I can call it. I don't know. I know it sounds spooky to some. It sounds woo-woo to others. But let me tell you something about these emblems.
So, Dr. Heru, Bob Heru, before we get into the
Mm-hmm.
craftsmanship, I
Right.
just want to kind of go back to just your experience in terms of being a New York City police officer, because we kind of touched on that somewhat, and we kind of segued into another discussion. Um,
Yes.
I want to talk about the from the beat to the beats, like what that meant in your interaction with some of the people that you would meet on your beat.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're talking about that article that was done by the New York Times, from police beat to prayer beads. Yeah. Um, I tell you, that was a journey for me. You see, when I came to America, everybody wanted me to go to college. I said, no, I will not submit my mind to be trained by those who have enslaved our ancestors. I will teach myself what I want to know. Just like Stephen Biko said, I write what I like. Well, I wanted to read what I liked, not what somebody decided I should read to give me a piece of paper saying that I'm educated. Because the fact is, I ended up teaching people with all kind of degrees about this legacy because they never touched this in school. This knowledge, they hide in this thing they call Egyptology in order to gyp us of our culture. And they try to put this land in the so-called Middle East instead of where it is right there on the map of Africa. And so being a police officer was a very good experience for me because I got to learn more about our people here in America because I always volunteered to work in the toughest precincts so I could learn close up what was the matter with us here. Because being a Garveyite, I just saw myself as part of my brothers and sisters. However, because of the fact that I spoke with a different accent, because when I first came here, I would speak with a very clipped British accent, because my schoolmasters, they spoke that very clipped British tongue, and so we are used to imitate their speech pattern. But I also learned how to speak the patois, island talk, and and so when I would speak with the English accent, they said, "Oh, you talking white." Then when I spoke the West Indian accent, they say, "Oh, you're a coconut." So I had trouble getting in with my brothers and sisters here. Now I realize that we have a lot of excuses to create divisions among us. And I saw it so plain from the day I landed here in America, how we sometimes indulge in divisive issues, light skin, dark skin, the paperback test, the whole of that nonsense. And I couldn't comprehend why we were doing this, but I learned up close. And I became what I would call a peace officer. Because to me, the job of a policeman is to, first of all, that's what they taught us in the academy, to prevent crime. If you're going to prevent crime, you've got to know the people that you are serving. You've got to respect them, first of all, because you're not there to try them in the street. You're not there to convict them in the street. You are there to be of service to the people. Police work is a service work. I know it used to be the slave catcher's work. That's how it started out. But the fact is, it's a people's work. And it was to me a great accomplishment to be able to teach on the beat. Because guess what, Taki? I found that I could clear the corner if I came on talking about African culture. Yeah, I don't want to hear that. I said, well, if you don't want to hear that, you have to leave my beat, okay? And so, and there were some young people who would listen to my harangue on the street corners of East New York, on the street corners of downtown Brooklyn, and even I started out in the village, in the East Village, in the 9th Precinct, down here on 10th Street between 1st and Avenue A. No, 5th Street between 1st and Avenue A. And I was when I worked in the village, they used to call me the beatnik cop because after I got off duty, I would go to coffee houses and I would read poetry because I love poetry. I memorized all kinds of poetry over my lifetime, and that gave me a lot of pleasure to be in among the hippies, doing my thing and with my guitar sometimes playing my songs and at poetry readings. And then, but when I went to East New York is when I really began to see the ravages of the crime and the ravages of how we dealt with each other. And I did everything in my power to bring a more understanding effort to police work. And I became, I would say, an expert in calming family disputes. One of my techniques, the husband and wife are fighting each other. I would come into their apartment limping and complaining about how my feet hurt. And sometimes I would just take off a shoe and start rubbing my feet. Meanwhile, now they have stopped arguing because they're concerned about my welfare. And so those are little tricks that I use in order to get their attention. And then I would tell them, listen, you're going to go downtown. Those folks are not interested in maintaining your union. And I said, you're making yourself look bad in our community. Find a way to solve your problems right here. I'm going to take as long as I need to for us to talk it over. So I began to become a counselor. And of course, my bosses didn't like it because they said I spent too much time on the jobs because you have to move fast because the complaints are coming over the radio and whatnot. But I found that if you spend time and get to know people, they would cooperate with you. So many of them had my home number. And sometimes when things went down on the beat, I would go straight to the person who did it, knock on their door and says, come with me. Let's say somebody took some tires off a car. I would say, come with me. And I said, and they said, come with you where, officer? I said, come. You see those tires there that you took off that man's car? You're going to put them right back on while I'm watching you, okay? And I did a lot of that adjudicating things like that on the beat in order to spare our people having to go through the court system. Now, I know that was a little, if I got caught, I would be in trouble. But I was blessed not to have any difficulties in the police department, though I was, I guess I was a provocateur in a sense because I was just different. You know, I did not see police work as something to persecute and to beat up on people. That to me, I never thought of ever using my gun, ever. So I never entertained the idea that one day I'm going to pull this gun out. I never thought like that. And most policemen don't think like that either. You'd be surprised. I met a lot of genuine people on the job, men who had purpose, but I also met some crooks.
Yeah, sure.
Trust
So
me.
let me ask you a question about the force and the NYPD. Have they ever uh, reached out to you to do like outreach for some of the outreach programs to police officers to train them in terms of how do they interact with our community?
You know, it's amazing because after I left, I really never looked back because it was very difficult for me. The people made it easy for me, but sometimes my bosses made it difficult for me. And so I never looked back. But whenever I got an opportunity, sometimes I would engage cops, you know, on the beat, and I would talk with them and encourage them to cooperate with the people so that they will let you live. I was protected by the people. I remember in East New York, they moved me off my beat, which I had a steady post for 4 years on Sutter Avenue. It was a post 1 mile long. And when I got there, it was like Dodge City. But after 4 years, through the cooperation of the people, the statistics went down. And oh boy, when you have a beat where the statistics provide your captain with the with the numbers that he needs to justify his promotion, and you are bringing them down instead of bringing them up, why you're interfering with his advance in rank. You see, so I was not looked upon too well because I was able, with the help of the people and the cooperation of the people, to bring the numbers down. And
Wait, let me see if I understand that. You're saying by crime prevention, so they need crime in order to be promoted? If I'm hearing you correctly?
let's put it this way: that the crime was out there. So if you wanted to, you can stay. You can make a lot of overtime, sitting down on your butt down in at central booking, or in court, you know. Um, but I never liked the idea of doing overtime because I had to do other studies and I had another life, you know, teaching myself the craft. So I did not want to spend too much of my extra time, dealing with police work. But I found that it was you could always tell. Remember this, that police are the lowest rank of the executive branch of the government. And sometimes the attitude of the president filters all the way down to the cop on the beat, and they begin to act accordingly, like we are seeing now, for instance. And I know this may get me into trouble, but at the age I am now, you can bring it on. The cat is out of the bag. I've spent my life trying to bring our people into knowledge of this great culture. That alone would help to lower the crime rate in our communities if we would only know that there is a culture, a spiritual culture that our ancestors called Ma'at. Ma'at means righteousness, balance, order, truth, reciprocity, sobriety, propriety. All of these divine principles is what our ancestors lived in the Nile Valley and spread throughout Africa, because there's a cultural unity of all of African, um, I should say, families. The names have just been changed as we moved around on that fantastic continent from place to place. But you would find some of the same principles being worshipped in Ghana as you would in the Nile Valley. For instance, the divine feminine principle of Heteru is known in among the Yoruba as Oshun. Okay, we have in the Ghanaian system you have the Obosum. In Kemet you have the Neteru. In the among the Yoruba, you got the Orisha. So you have this company of divine forces and principles which exist in nature, exist within and without. They have a cosmic life as well as an earthly life. For instance, Asar has the life of the farmer. Asar is known as Neb Shefau, Lord of Foods, because the Asarans dealt with agriculture, with the planting and the reaping and the harvest. All right. And yet at the same time, Asar has an identity with the star, the star body known as Orion today, which we call Sa. So Asar has a home in the stars. His divine complement, Ast or Set, who they call Isis, she has a star home likewise, the star Ast Seperet, the star known as Sirius today.
Right.
So there are different levels in which we are able to access the thinking, the thought form of our ancient ancestors. They were not just occupied with the temporal zone of the terrestrial plane of Earth. That's why I tell people we were cosmogenous for eons before we became earthly indigenous.
So,
And
Baaba
that's
Heru,
another thing. We tend to think of when you start having a star talk, they accuse you of being woo-woo, of being a little touched in the head. But there is, and this you will discover when you claim your African culture. You will discover that there is a hidden realm which it's your duty to pry open using the tools of the spirit. The spiritual life gives you freedom to test hypotheses and not just to accept dogma and have your mind be imposed upon with belief instead of knowledge that you can apply and learn from. One moment, I think we need, we're going to have to get this. I'm running low. Forgive me, are we going to have a little bit of a...
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, there's a cord over there, a big cord.
so while Baaba Heru is getting the situation together over there, I just want to thank
Yes,
everyone
Happy.
for coming up.
So I don't know. I tend to ramble sometimes,
No, no,
but
no, no, no. It's not.
I
It's
hope
wisdom.
I've
Wisdom.
covered.
But I just want to, the important thing here, I really want people to know who you are. And I think
Yes,
really about we find ourselves in other people. And you have such a fantastic story, and I want you to tell your story.
yes,
We'll
sir.
transition into the wisdom of the Nile and things like that. But for right now, Haru Ankh Ra Samaj Sepata. How did you come? How did you how was that name bestowed upon you?
That's very interesting that you should ask that. The name Heru is a title, really. It's known as Horus in the Greek. It's known as George among the British. It's known as Jorges in Latin. When I began to really take seriously the study of Nile Valley culture, I said, well, I need a name that is emblematic of the ancestral reclamation. And so I began to look at my given name, and I wanted to see if the germ of my chosen name was already buried in my given name. And so my family name, being born in Quisqueya, and they speak Spanish there, my family name there is pronounced Jorges. In English, it's Georges. In French, it's Georges. All right? And in Greek, it's Horus. And in Kemet, it's Heru. So, and then my grandfather, his name was, on my father's side, was Alexander. On my mother's side, my grandfather's name was Felipe. Now, Philip of Macedon was the father of Alexander the Greek. Now, I'm not claiming their culture, I'm seeing that warrior spirit in their names, which I seem to have that warrior spirit. And then, to make it even more interesting, my mother's maiden name is Guerrero, which means warrior. So I said, okay. And when I studied the legacy, I noticed that all the illustrious kings of the Nile Valley took the title Heru. So when I would teach Comedics 101, and I would give them the legacy and the legend of Ast and Asar, who they call Isis and Osiris, I would say, this is your ancient mother and father, not Adam and Eve, but Ast and Asar. According to the story of Cam, these are your parents, your ancient ancestral parents. And so I would say, if Asar is your father and Ast is your mother, who are you? Everybody in the class had better say Heru. And I would have them saying, Heru, Heru, Heru. Why? You remember the movie Spartacus? When the centurions of Rome came to arrest Spartacus, and all the men were in the quarry working and busting the rocks, they said, who is Spartacus? Everybody said, I'm Spartacus, I'm Spartacus, I'm Spartacus. I don't know if you remember that part of the movie. Well, in the same way, I was trying to get our brothers and sisters to claim their Heruship. And when you claim that you are Heru, you only have one job to do. Restore Ma'at. Restore the balance in your life, beginning first with restoring the balance in your own body temple by discarding the habits of eating the foods of slaves and begin to eat the foods of the sun. Okay, eat the foods of the cosmic realm. Eat the chlorophyll, get the green things in your system. And this is the basis of this opened me up to really get more light, to attract more light. Because once you clean the body temple, you are more open to a general healing. And so I always encourage our brothers and sisters to claim names of their ancient legacy, because they said, I will receive my name in the great double house in the evening of fire and night. Something like that in the Persian Heru. So reclaiming a name is very important because it gives you the emblem of your purpose in life. And to be Heru. And the woman, you are Heru also, because Heru is a plural name. The you means plural. It means that woman or men can take the title Heru. Of course, the female can feminize it by adding a T at the end, Herut. Okay? And so this is how I began. And then I met Dr. Ben in 1980. Somebody gave me, no, it was in the late 70s while pounding the beat in East New York. Somebody gave me a tape of Dr. Ben. And when I heard him, I said, wait a minute, he sounds like my father. Because my father was a preacher man. He was a minister of the Church of God of Prophecy in the village of Huntham's Gut in the island of Tortola, where I grew up. And I listened to Dr. Ben, and I said, wow, this man sounds like my father. So I adopted him, even though he didn't know that. And in 1980, at Church of the Master in Holland, I presented Dr. Ben with his Ankh because I had read his books, Black Man of the Nile and His Family, We the Black Jews, They All Look Alike, volumes 1 and 2, and so many of his other books. And I said, well, it's time for us to begin to apply these principles that we are learning about through these books. And I used to go up to listen to him and Dr. Clark at First World Alliance in Harlem at the Mount Zion Lutheran Church up at the 145th Street and Convent Avenue. And all the greats would come there to lecture. Maulana Karanga, his wife Tia Moyo, so many others would come. Professor Smalls, Professor Jeffries, they all would come there. And I recall that Jacob Carruthers and also Dr. Jacob Carruthers from the University of Chicago and Maulana Karanga, and Dr. Ben, they wanted to form ASCAC, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization. So I became one of the founding members of ASCAC, and I remember the very first meeting I attended in Dr. J's office up at City College. Dr. Ben drove me to that meeting because I just gotten off the subway at 145th Street, and I was walking up the hill to go to City College, and Dr. Ben was coming down in his car, and he saw me, tooted his horn, and I jumped in. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going up because you all want us to form this organization called ASCAC. So he said, oh, yeah, that's right. I said, are you going? He said, no, when we elders come, we intimidate the people. So you all let me know how you made out. Well, from day one, I wanted us to go directly to the Nile Valley. I don't think that Dr. J was having it because he came into the meeting with a big coffee table book of the Ashanti gold weights. I said, uh-oh, we're going to get stuck in the West. I wanted to go east. I wanted to go to where it started, you see, because to me, if we're going to repair the damage that has been done to us as a people, we need the strongest African medicine that we can find in terms of our cultural reclamation. And that's why I decided to go to the Nile Valley. And I'm going to tell you something that I don't to this day comprehend: how our preachers allow folks to get away with, you say you believe in God. You say you believe that the Bible is the bona fide word of God. But wait a minute. How come you don't read the Old Testament where your lineage is shown right there? You see, there is a lot of plagiarism in the book, but there's a lot of wisdom there. And I find a lot of African wisdom in that Bible. So y'all don't throw it away yet. You will find some of the keys to your freedom right in the book of Genesis. And I will tell you exactly how you do it, how I did it. You see, I took the story, since I was a preacher's son, I took the story of Adam and Eve and Noah very literally, like most of us do, but not enough to see where we have a doorway to our freedom of our consciousness. Because let's begin with God having to go against his own law and slaughtering the first group of humans that he created in a flood. Then he looked, before he brought the flood on, he looked for one just man by the name of Noah. And Noah had 3 sons and their wives. Of course, patriarchal systems don't deal with the names of the women. So we don't know the name of Shem's wife, or of Ham's wife, or as Japheth's wife. However, the story goes like this. You see, brothers and sisters, before I go into the story, if you are tied with a knot, I cannot free you by untying another knot. I have to address the knot that you are tied with. You are tied into King James. Now, you can stay there if you want. I'm not here to try to pull you. I'm not looking to convert you. This path is not for everyone. So I'm not trying to get you to change your religion, nothing like that. But I will tell you this, you have missed the boat. You have missed the boat to your total freedom because there's some knowledge that you need that you will not find in that book. You have to go to the primary evidence that your ancestors carved in stone and wrote on papyrus, because there you will find the writings of the one that the Bible calls Ham, your father. Because you go to any of the theological cemeteries and they will tell you that Ham is the African, that Japheth is the Gentile, what they call the Caucasian, the European, the Asiatic man, and they will tell you that Shem is the Jewish people and the Arabs. So now, look at us. We African people, your book tells you that you're children of Ham. And your book also says that you should honor your mother and your father, that your days may be long on the earth. So if your father is Ham, or actually it's not Ham, it's not an H sound, it's a K sound, it's a Chom. Chom. In Hebrew, the name is Chom. In the Nile Valley, it's Km, K-M. And that name is spelt with a burnt, charred piece of wood. So if you are children of Ham, as the Bible spells it, let me ask you, preacher man, what are you doing in your Uncle Shem's house? Why are you not in your father's house? Oh, have you embraced the curse of Canaan to serve your uncles in their tent? Because the King James Version, the New Testament is Japheth's book, the Old Testament is Shem's book. So I ask you, African man and woman, where is Cam's book? I will tell you where you can find Cam's book. It's written in stone. It's written in stone on temple walls up and down the Nile Valley, with pages too heavy for you to turn. My father used to say, when they ask you, son, where is your book? Tell them it's too heavy to carry. Because the first letter on the first page of our book is the Merkut, who you call the pyramid. That alone will take you lifetimes to contemplate. Oh, by the way, you should know that I went through initiation in the pyramid of Khufu, in the king's chamber, in the coffer of the king's chamber. And I came out of that chamber transformed. The first time I went to Kemet, I went by myself because I had to have the experience alone. Of course, I'd visited there many times before because I'm a star traveler, y'all. I know that sounds spooky to you, but I'd go into realms of consciousness that all of us can go into if we are not scared. But a lot of us are so afraid. Oh, you're doing magic. No, it's what you call spiritual effective action. That's how you access those realms of consciousness. Because when I'm sculpting rings and pendants and things like that, I do that. And I journey into places and I visit the ancient ones. And you, all of you can do it. But let me get back to this story. If you are a child of Ham, then you need to be in Ham's house. You need to begin to study, because all of the major prophets, and every time I get a chance on social media, I repeat the same thing because I'm like a needle stuck in a groove, and I will not stop saying the same thing over and over until you get it. Look, you are missing a body of knowledge that will transform your life completely. for the better. Because the freedom that you're going to feel on the inside is going to change your walk, it's going to change your talk. And I warn you, be very careful how you bring this discovery to your mamas and your papas. You must always be respectful, because they launch you into the world to surpass them. But when you come back with news that they don't want to hear, then you find out that they didn't really mean it. But the fact is that it's your duty to bring them back this knowledge.
So,
And
Baba, let me ask you a question.
yes, go ahead.
What prompted you to claim the Nile Valley culture through application and practice? What was the impetus behind that?
Well, as I said before, the seed was planted very young. And I mean, when my father told me about this young boy king, and my father used to say, you look like King Tut when I was small. And so I grew up into the knowledge. But as I said before, when I started going to the lectures with Dr. Ben, going to being one of the founding members of ASCAC, I said, well, how long are we going to study this before we begin to apply and practice it? And that used to make me so pissed off, because I said, what is the matter with us? We just want to have this knowledge to get into women's pants, because, women are attracted to knowledge. And many of us use that knowledge to do exactly that. And I said, no. The time has come for us to live and practice my art. Because if all the prophets that you read about in your Bible came into the Nile Valley and benefited from contact with the hospitality of the Nile Africans, then you should learn about these people too. You worship Yeshua, Jesus, but he went into the temples of Kemet according to the story. And I know some of you say, well, none of that ever happened. But you know something? If enough people believe in something, it becomes real to them, and it must be respected. But that don't mean that you have to claim it for yourself, okay? And so I decided that I'm going to start to teach the little that I knew about the Nile Valley. And it was not easy, because I was stumbling all over myself. I began to find my footing. And that's why I would teach people the little that I knew, then I would chase them away, because I didn't want them to hang around me. No, I'm a falcon, and I'm also a lion. And both the falcon and the lion throws the chick out of the nest and the cub out of the nest very early, so they can learn how to think for themselves. You see, my ego was not caught up, even though I'm a Leo. It was not caught up in people praising me and hanging around me and fawning over me. I never needed that. I get my satisfaction and my eternity by the works of my own hands. However, I wanted our brothers and sisters to begin to investigate the Nile Valley culture. And therefore the first group I formed was somewhat reactionary, because I took Akhenaten as my hero. And I formed a group known as the Jewels of Aton. Later on, of course, I modified the pronunciation to the Jewels of Aten Ra. But after I said, I have to go a little deeper, because that's the 18th dynasty. And I wanted the more authentic claim to this Nile Valley culture. So then it took me, of course, to the Old Kingdom. And I found the perfect template in the Shabaka stone, which was written over by King Shabaka of the Kushite dynasty, the 25th dynasty, that he found this papyrus roll, and it had seemed to be worm-eaten. And he had it copied in stone. And that stone document is now in the British Museum. And I made a special trip there to England to see and to put my hand on that stone. Because, you see, Ptah is my Neteru. And Ptah was the ruling Neteru of the city of Menefer, the city of the White Walls. And so I decided, well, I'm going to formulate the Shrine of Ptah, because I wanted to lay a foundation for the living practice and application. And that's the reason why I started to carry the Ankh. And when I started to carry the Ankh, I thought that I would be embraced by my brothers and sisters, but would say, "Why are you carrying that thing?" I said, "Because I saw it on the temple walls. And it's life." I said, "Most of you like guns, don't you? You got a gun in your pocket right now, I bet, huh?" I said, "But we need life because we spend too much time hurting each other and killing each other. We need to uplift life." And therefore, I began to teach a course I called Chemetics 101. And that was the beginning of the formation of shrines. The formation,
So
yes, go ahead.
I just want to talk to you about Comedics 101. You opened the door right into that. And from just looking at the chat and from everyone I talked to, you've touched so many people. And some people you're beloved, literally, by thousands. And dua Neteru for that. And I want to talk to you about the inspiration for Comedics 101 and the manhood development trainings that you put in place. And why is that so important to you? And like, why was it such a mission for you to teach the youth and to carry on the legacy?
Well, you see, when you claim a Neter as your guide, you have to do the works of the Neter. Now, the Neter Ptah is known as one who lays the foundation. Ptah is the Neter of architects, of builders, of all people who work with their hands, who work in different crafts. And when I read the Shabaka stone, and it says that all of the Neteru exist within Ptah, and that whatever Ptah thought, Atum, from which the soul and created Adam, by the way, the principle of Atum, the principle of perfect action and perfection. I said, wait a minute, this is how I'm going to lay the foundation in Ptah. And that's how, but in order to lay the foundation in Ptah, I had to teach what was left to us by our ancestors in the Nile Valley. This led me, of course, to read the works of Gerald Massey, of Theophila Obenga, of Sheikh Anta Diop, of Basil Davidson, because I found that there were many Caucasian writers who told the truth. Not all Caucasians are spooked and liars. There's some who are very honest and who will tell the truth. And one was Count Volney, who wrote the book called The Ruins of Empires. And when Count Volney came to America and went to visit um, um, Thomas Jefferson up at Monticello, he told Thomas Jefferson that, you see these people that you call slaves, their ancestor laid the foundation of a spiritual culture that has spread all up and down the Nile. So Thomas Jefferson knew that he was living a massive contradiction because Volney told him. And when Volney came to New York and he picked up a copy of his book in one of the bookstores here in America, the preface where he gives credit to the African, those who are rejected of society for their sable skin and frizzled hair, founded upon the study of the laws, those laws which still govern our universe. I'm messing up the paraphrase, but exactly that. And I said, wow, these people knew when they were accusing us of being 3/5 of a human being, they knew who we were because we didn't come over here ignorant. We came over here, we built the White House. George Washington Carver was a priest of Kemet translated over here. Okay, Booker T. Washington, the same thing. These are men who had knowledge and brought that knowledge across in the waters by their ancestors over here. And these are the things that my father used to say to me. He said that the most powerful, he said to me, you know something? You're going to discover that the most powerful African on earth is in New York City. I said, why you say that, Papa? He says, because Africans come from all over and they're settled there. And there's something magical about the Africans in New York. You must study them. And of course, being a policeman, I got a great opportunity. And in studying my people and in seeing the things we would do to each other, I came to realize the only reason why we are the way we are is because of lack of knowledge of self and purpose. So I decided in teaching Kinetics 101 that I would infuse a sense of purpose in all of those that I would teach. And they would tell you that I built in a fast, a 21-day fast in the Kinetics 101 because I insisted, after reading the works of R.A. Schwaller de Lubbock's, who wrote The Temple and Man, 2-volume study, where he camped out in the temple of Luxor for 15 years. And he said the temple began to speak to him. Now, even though he sympathized somewhat with Adolf Hitler, that crook, the fact is that the temple spoke to him in a way that it did not speak to the other Egyptologists, because those Egyptologists were only concerned with maintaining the lie of a 3100 BC as the beginning of ancient Nile Valley culture and civilization. When the watermarks, John Anthony West, who came to my studio, by the way, John Anthony West and others did the studies, and they found out because of the watermarks around Nebhu, called the Sphinx today, they said, wait, rains in the Nile Valley? Yes, over 36,000 years ago. So this nonsense, they didn't want it to be older than the Old Testament, because as far as our Christian brothers and sisters are concerned, that the earth was formed at 6,000 BC, some say at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so let me get my earphone. Yes, indeed. So Taki,
So,
go
yeah,
ahead.
so one of the things I want to do is come back to what you were saying earlier about the balancement in HAPI, or why the age of HAPI is so important. And with that, the question is, why does the HAPI resonate with you so much?
Because rivers tell tales. I grew up in my childhood near a river. It was called Huntham's Gut, and it used to run right below our house. And every year, it would have its inundation during the hurricane season. And I would stay looking from where our house was perched on a hill. I would look down, we would see dogs and cats being carried away by the flood of Huntham's Gut River. And my father would say, you see there? That's just like how it happens in the Nile. So my growing up in Tortola, it was a wild country. I mean, it was a paradise. We used to swing from trees trying to be like Tarzan, right? Because we had the comic books even then. Oh, by the way, the first time I saw the N-word was in a nursery rhyme book that they sent to our elementary school class, and it says, "Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, caught the N-word by his toe. If he hollers, let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo." And there was this beautiful girl and boy with frizzled hair being eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And I said, and so I realized as I grew up, they were indoctrinating us to hate ourselves, to hate our hair, and to hate our complexion. So life on the island of Tortola, the only thing at the time they would give us the books like Huckleberry Finn. Well, I had a Huckleberry Finn in black experience, running around barefoot, riding my horses and donkeys, bareback, and growing my potatoes and planting our food, shelling our pigeon peas, using the mortar and pestle to grind the cassava. And by the way, cassava is a dangerous food. We used to use the cassava paste for our kites, because as young boys we used to fly our kites, and we used cassava paste to put the paper on the frame of the kite. Was made of very light wood. So my life as a country boy, yeah, I'm country to the bone, y'all. It's only that when I came to New York, I got a little bit of city gloss, you know, walking around in my Pierre Cardin jackets and my Italian loafers with the tassels. You know, women love, they look at your feet, you know that. And so, but in 1969, while I was about 4 years on the force, I had an epiphany, and I took all of my Western garb and I threw them in the garbage. All my fancy Italian loafers and my sulca ties and shirts with the high roll collar that Sammy Davis Jr. used to wear, I threw them in the garbage. And anything African I could find to put on my body, I put on. You should have seen me. I was a walking African uh, um, model. I would wear a grand booba. I would wear the slippers, you know, that they wear in Morocco. I was something to behold. And I would go to the precinct, and they would say, "Oh, here he come in his pajamas." And I would go upstairs, take off my robes, and put on my uniform and my tie. And I always wore long sleeves, even in the summer. I was one of the sharpest cops on the beat because of I was so, or I would say, I was so provocative. I wasn't well liked by my bosses. They said I was an uppity N-word, and I was. And I didn't mind them calling me names because I knew who I was. And it was not easy, but I held on to that shift. And in that same year, I became a total vegetarian. I was on my way to becoming a drunk. I stopped drinking all booze. Not even beer would pass my lips. And I began to study deeper and to prepare myself for the mission that my father gave to me when I was a boy. So I would say that I've been faithful to this mission for all these years. Of course, in my younger years, I would fade in and fade out. But in 69, I made a decision to come all the way home. And I chose the Nile Valley precisely because of what I read in the Bible. I said, well, if these people were so hospitable to Abraham and Sarah, if they could educate Moses to such a degree, because you see, I took the story to be literal too. And I said, so if they could teach Moses to such a degree that he could surpass his teachers by having his argument eat up the argument of the king's magicians, as they call them, I said, it means that our ancestors were not holding knowledge to themselves, because the art of being a teacher is that your students are supposed to surpass you in knowledge. That's why I learn a lot from my former students today. I sit down, I sit back, I listen to Jabari and Anika. I said, look here, teach me. I listened, well, one of my contemporaries is Booker T, known as Kaba Kamene, who wrote the fabulous book, Spirituality Before Religion. Everybody should have that book. That's one brother who, and you know, there's a certain admiration I have for brothers and sisters with college degrees who still love their African culture. They are very special people, let me tell you. Because, you know, so-called higher education will have you cooperating with a caste system that exists here in America that separates the educated ones. As a matter of fact, if you have a BA and somebody got a master's, oh, they got a leg up on you. When you got a PhD, well, oh my gosh, your shit don't stink. So you see, I've learned that we have been tricked with these pieces of paper. And I know why we go after them, because people wouldn't listen to us. But let me tell you, people listen to me. Why? Because I'm sincere in my desire to bring the little knowledge that I have to my people. And I would tell brothers and sisters, when you get this knowledge, and I learned this early, don't get on the soapbox. Watch how you bring this knowledge to your family, because they're going to be intimidated. Just let them see the shift in your behavior. Let them observe you making your juice, eating your salad when they're sitting around Thanksgiving and Turkey Day, eating all them hog maws and chitlins. and you are just having your salad, yeah, let them laugh at you and call you eating rabbit food, but remind them that the rabbits are very sexually promiscuous and very sexually energized. So you be when you go to the green. And brothers, that's the key. You want longevity sexually? Eat green. Eat the sun, which lives in green things. Eat the chlorophyll. I remember when I became a vegetarian, my erections were getting out, was going, I was busting my skin. I had to get circumcised at the age of 30 after becoming a vegetarian, because I realized that when you eat green, you become super virile. Okay? And that's a trick, brothers and sisters, especially you brothers who like to have your morning sunrise. You want a real morning sunrise, eat the green. I'm going to be right up straight with you. Listen, I'm too old to sugarcoat the stuff. I got to tell it like it is. Okay?
So Bob
Yes, sir.
Heru, I so here's the thing, right? So we spoke about that earlier. You alluded to it, and you talked about the balance. We talked about the happy within, the happy out, and
Right.
we talked about just the establishment of my eye. I want to tie this into this project in terms of why it's important for people to see a film like Happy, in terms of the age we're living in, the age of Happy or the age of Aquarius, and trying to find that balance in our life at many different levels, whether to economics, politics, whether to your culture, and just how we can find balance in something like this.
Well, first of all, your movie, Taki, and let me give honor and praise to that young man that I told you about, who became him and his wife are behind the camera. I'm speaking of Chehudi Films. That the beauty of that film, that was the lighting, the colors, it is something to behold. It's the real Wakanda, okay? I make no bones about it. It's a beautiful film, and you have marshaled so many people to contribute to this film. And to see Zawi Hawass up there, and Dr. Batalora, and so many of our brothers and sisters, Dr. Jeffries, to see Brother Jabari, and so many of the other brothers and sisters who you brought onto this film. That alone is a feast for the eyes. But I think it will help our brothers and sisters to see that they must find a way at some time when this corona mess is over to go to the Nile Valley. Anika and Jabari, they take groups there every year, sometimes hundreds of young people to the Nile Valley. And it's so that film is a door opener. When you see the power of that river that we tamed, that our ancestors tamed with their hands, it is something mind-boggling. And I'm saying to you that, to me, even though I respect African culture in general, I have a particular love for what took place in the Nile. And when I speak of the Nile, I'm not just speaking of the northern region. I'm talking about where it began all the way to the south in Monomotapa, around Kenya, Uganda, regions in the equatorial regions of Africa. To us, that is south, and north to us is Kush, because our dividing line is the equator. Okay, as far as this geographical earth is concerned. And so these two rivers, the one being fed by Nyanza Victoria in central equatorial Africa, and the one being fed, the Blue Happy, being fed by Lake Tana in Kush, or Kash, now called Ethiopia. These two rivers and the power that those rivers generate for our people made of that land the breadbasket of the then known world. And so when you begin to study Hapi, and you go beyond just the beautiful artifacts, beyond the jewelry that we have in the museums, to the lifestyle that your ancestors left you pictures, because they knew that we were going to go to sleep. And so they made sure that they left a memory that we can tap into deep in stone. And no matter how much those strangers, those pirates try to chip noses and lips and try to separate us from claiming that culture by putting it inside of a lie that they call Egyptology in order to gyp us, when you look at the movie HAPI, it's going to plant a seed in your consciousness. You're going to want to know more about this magical river. But you see, HAPI is just one of the rivers that we have had to deal with. We dealt with also with the Niger. You see, Africa is a land of rivers. And I always tell my brother and sister Muslims, you know, when the Quran speaks about the that garden where waters flow, why, brothers and sisters of Islam, you surely got your paradise when you took Egypt, didn't you? When you drove out the Romans, and you went there not to stay, but you stayed. And I want to thank you for protecting the artifacts. I want to thank Mariette, who suggested to the Khedive of Kemet at the time that he build a museum, because not to just be satisfied with melting down the gold and caskets of our ancestors, but to have them on show that you could make bakshish in perpetuity, as is happening today, right now. They're building the biggest museums in the world to house the artifacts of a people who the Egyptologists have labeled pagan and heathen. The very teachers of the prophets have been vilified and slandered and defamed. And the Heru in me is here to confront that. That's why in my days when I had a band, I wrote this little piece. I said, my father, Asa, was dismembered and slain, and his brother Set, he now wears the mark of Cain. I've come to deliver the words of retribution for the crimes that he has done. I'm Heru Ma Heru, the ever-coming one. My mother's name is Erst. You may know her as the widow Isis. Well, I am the widow's son. Now, get off her. Get off my mama. Get off her. Get out of Africa. I say, get off her. Get off my mama. Get off her. Get out of Africa. Shumbalakatimpampe, shikalakataka hekatimbe, zulakahaka tekatimbo, rikatikateka tekatimbo, rikatik tak, tik tak, tik tak, tik tak, rikatik tak, tik tak, tik tak. Two predators raped Mama with scimitar and sword, said they came into Africa to bring us the word. They jihaded and crusaded for the Holy Grail, found the treasures of Atlantis and put them in jail in the basement of the London and Paris museums, and miles of African genius lies hidden in European tombs. Hey, return the treasures, return them to my mama, return the treasures, return them to my mama, return the treasures, return the treasures, return them to the people of Africa. Shimbalakatakatimpompey, shikalakataka hekatimwe. Oh, just in case you thought that I forgot to deal with that stinking racist rot, that immoral blob called that immoral blob of pink pale presumacy, a thing that calls itself white supremacy, pushing apartheid in Pretoria, offending the firstborn of Azania. How can you share power with a thief and a murderer? You should have said no, Nelson Mandela. Let them find a home for their attitude of ice on the frosty shores of Antarctica. Now get off her! Get off my mama, get off her, get out of Africa. Don't get me started, you see. When I did that at the UN in front of some South Africans.
You deserve a round of applause for that. That was divine. No, absolutely. It was beautiful. Dua.
Yes,
so, I'm sorry, go ahead. You were saying when you did that for the UN?
I did that at the UN at a gathering they had there for some South African brothers and sisters who came. And when I dropped that last line, I expected that it would explode, but they were so quiet. So I asked someone, I said, why did they not respond to that last verse? He said, my brother, our people have been so beaten. They have been so emptied out of emotion because of how they have suffered that they could not really respond to the magic of what you were saying. He said, but keep it up, you know. And that's I formed a band known as the Kemet Rising Ensemble. You see, Taki, I used every talent that I had to hurl against these liars and to invite our brothers and sisters to discover the beauty of African culture and spirituality. Because that's what Ma'at is. Ma'at is a spiritual culture. It is not a religion. Religion is based upon belief and dogma. Spirituality gives you nefu, freedom, to discover the mysteries of the universe, which we call God in English. By the way, I don't like that Gothic word. First of all, it only posits a male principle, a wifeless personage that is jealous, that is wrathful, that is angry. No, I want a deity who is pure myrrh, pure love, and that I found in my beloved father Asar and my beloved mother Us, and their mother Nut, and their father Geb, and their wisdom teacher Tehuti, and their warrior son Heru Kuhuti. These are the principles that once our children find out that Heru lives inside of them, that Heru is a Christ that can never be crucified, that Heru is a principle that will continue to rise through the ashes no matter how much we are downtrodden. When you claim the principle of Heru, you will rise. I guarantee you will rise. And people will recognize there's something different about you. But you've got to have the courage to know that, hey, you may not fit into the zones that you used to fit into anymore. You have to look for new company because there's work to be done in the reclamation of this ancient culture. And we must live it, practice it, and be it, not just study it and feel good-ism about it, but to teach it and to share it with those who are ready for it. Please, it's time for us to rise from this long sleep that we've been under. And unfortunately, when Kanye West said that slavery was a choice, no, Kanye, chattel slavery was no choice, but our voluntary enslavement to the concepts of our enslavers is a choice. But you also have another choice, to say to these thieves, thank you for your book. I found some of my African wisdom in there. And one of our brothers by the name of Martin Luther King used that book to whip your ass. Okay? And don't sleep on Brother Martin Luther King, because he knew about this story I'm telling you. He knew about the Nile Valley culture. He wrote when he was in college at the age of 20. He wrote an essay dealing with the trinity of Ast, Asar, and Heru. And the professor wrote something in the margin encouraging him not to go too deep. It's on the internet. So he knew. Obama also knew about the Nile Valley because that reverend that he had to disown, he used to invite scholars to his church. So if Michelle and Obama were sitting up in that church, you better believe they learned about the Nile Valley, because Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and all of those luminaries lectured in that church. The matter of fact, the minister of that church, I gave him an ankh. And I also gave an ankh to Reverend Johnny Youngblood of the the Baptist Church, St. Paul's Community Baptist Church in East New York, where I used to pound the beat as a cop. By the way, I did a wedding there. One of my students was a member of that church, and Johnny Youngblood allowed me to come into this church and do a Kemetic wedding. So that's the kind of ecumenism that I'm about. Right now, I'm making inroads with my Hebrew Israelite brothers. Captain Tazariak, I see you, my brother, and I hope to come to your picnic when you assign it again. I want to be there to hang out with my Hebrew Israelite brothers. You Moors, I love you Moors. I carry Moorish blood. Why? Because my grandmother was from Spain, and on my mother's side. And you better believe, if you're a woman of Spain, you knew the Moors in a very, very beautiful way, didn't you? And you may try to deny it all you want, Mr. Columbus, but the Moors must be checked out. Now, that's not to say that some of them were not crooks, and some of them did not help to enslave some of our brothers and sisters. But don't dwell on those who brought civilization to Europe, who taught the Europeans the art of the bath, who introduced them to soap and water, okay? And who built universities all around the Iberian Peninsula. They educated these people. And now, look at how they turn on us. They leave their beautiful homes in Europe and they come to America to be white, to join the white club. And the day must come when all those people who do us wrong, we must trace them back to their origin, because someone said that the Mexicans do not send their best. Did Europe send their best? Huh? Did Germany send its best? Huh? Those who enslaved and raped my grandmothers on the plantation, were they the best that you have, Europe? Huh? Don't get me started, and you can't shut me up, because guess what? I'm at the age now I don't give a damn what you do, because the cat is out of the bag. Segment is on the prowl. I do not condone violence, but you've done violence to us with lies, and we are going to do violence to you with the truth. So you may find it even more painful when you see us rise out of the sleep that we have been under for so long. And there are so many young brothers and sisters. And I used to get pissed off when I would see them on Sonetta arguing with each other and debating, but I realized that these brothers who used to go in the schoolyard with guns and knives are now using wisdom, are using their intellect to debate each other. And if you're going to be a debater, you better be a good reader. And that's what Malcolm used to do. When Malcolm was in jail, he used to read a dictionary like you read a book. You'll turn a page, go down and read the words. That's why when Malcolm spoke, anybody could understand him. He knew polysyllables, but the fact is he wanted to reach the people, okay? And so he knew words, and you must study words. Now, there are some words which you must immediately expunge from your use. You must decolonize your tongues, brothers and sisters. Your tongues have been enslaved to utter words that have been to your detriment. The N word, for instance, the G word. Are you Gothic? You're going to call on the mother, father of all creation by a patriarchal word that is only uttered as a pronoun. He did this for me. Where is the she, African, in your worship? Where is the feminine principle in your worship? Oh, are there any female angels in your heaven, my beloved brothers and sisters? Huh? Where is Gabriel's Gabriella? Where is Michael's Michaela? Where is Lucifer's Lucifera? Where are the women in your religion? Where are the women in the ecclesiastical zone of your belief system? Oh, you sisters, You are the ones who make the church happen. I've sat down on a Saturday in a church when they're getting ready to do their Sunday teachings, and the woman would read from the founding principles of the church that they're not allowed to go on the pulpit and preach. They can deliver the word made flesh from their wombs, but they must shut their mouth on Sunday morning, according to Paul of Corinth. I beg your pardon. Paul, no, no, no. You see, we have gone away from our true culture where we lift up the divine feminine principle side by side with the father principle. And we have just embraced a total patriarchal way of thinking and being. And sisters, you help it. You help your own enslavement because you never pray to the mother aspect of you. You only pray to him. And guess what? His son does not even look like you. You are indulging in ecclesiastical polyandry. You've got 3 husbands, the one at home looking at TV because he don't want to go to church while he watch you making love to that guy on the wall with long blonde hair and blue eyes, and you got his son sitting up. His pop is at home trying to relax because he's been tired running in that truck all day long, delivering goods, and he puts food on the table. And when you sit down to do your grace, do you thank your daddy? No. Your thanks go to an invention that was created in the northern regions of the earth. So listen, it's time that we wake up. And Taki, you know I can go on all day and all night, my brother, without repeating myself. But I want to pause right here and allow you to bring me back to anything that you think I have not covered in this session, and I hope there will be others. However, I want to stay focused because I can really go on and on. All right?
You know, Baaba Heru, I'm just looking at the comments as you're speaking, and the people really, it's resonating in the people in a really deep way. And that's why I just, I don't want to stop you from kids. Just let it flow. People really, they're enjoying it. They're like I said, you're beloved. And I can't think of a better word to describe you as an individual. And you seem that, you have a way of touching the hearts and minds of a lot of people. And Ashe. So there was something we were talking about earlier, the craftsmanship, the bata, and it's so important for who you are, what you stand for, what you represent, and just coming to the studio of Bata. By the way, we want everyone to go down. You can say the address for us really quickly. Let everyone know they need to go down to Studio Bata and do business with you and to practice cooperative economics. Go down there and patronize the establishment. It's extremely important. You want to get them the address?
Oh, yes. 55-59 Christie Street. I'm between Canal and Hester in Chinatown.
You want to say that again, Baaba Heru? You want to say that again a little slowly because I want Felicia to put it in the chat.
Yes, I'm in the Chinatown area of Lower Manhattan, right off the foot of the Manhattan Bridge overpass, between Canal and Hester, 55-59 Christie Street, CHRYSTIE Street. And B105. By the way, the building is closed on the street level, so when you come, give us a call and we'll come up and let you in. They're installing a buzzer system, and that will be coming soon. This building is a beautiful building. It's one of the most restored ancient buildings in the Chinatown area. The fireman came in here a few years ago and he said this is one of the best preserved buildings because the ex-landlord, Gary Yee, did a fantastic job of renovating this beautiful place. And when you come into my place, you're going to come into what I call you have the Bat Cave. Well, this is the Ankh Cave. You're going to love it in here. Okay?
I want people to go out and support the elder. It's extremely important. We got to give our elders heartbeat props and don't wait until they make their transitions to become ancestors to support them. That happens all too often. So we want people to go out, go down to see Baaba Heru in the studio of Ptah. Now,
I
Baaba Heru, the studio of Ptah, how long has it been in business? How long has it been in
well, the studio, this studio, to tell you the truth, and I've had this conversation many times with my family. My son is my boss, and I work for him, to tell you the truth. And his name is Elayton, a wonderful young man. My first son, Everett, he was the one who held things down while I was building the center in Brooklyn with my then beloved wife, Queen Afua. I spoke to her today, by the way. She's doing fantastic work with our women in that book that we had. That was our baby, Sacred Woman, a guide to healing the feminine body, mind, and spirit, that was published by Random House and is coming out again in the spring. And it's since that time, I also introduced the rites of passage for men, the divine sacred kingman rites of passage, because the first group of women that went through rites of passage with Queen Afua, after they were done, there were 51 of them. They said, well, where are the men? So of course, Queen looked at me, and of course but I knew what that meant. So I got pencil and paper, and I sat down, and I created a rites of passage for men that your cinematographer, Tahuti Films, that Brother Seed, he went through that rites of passage. So by the time he got to Egypt, he knew where he was and why he was there. And that's something the Taki, to me, was so magical about how that film got made. I'll never forget when you came down to the studio and you were looking for someone to do the cinema behind the camera. You had the idea for this fantastic film, but you needed a cameraman, a man who knew his way around lens and lights and all of this. And so this brother, who is a divine sacred kingman of my class, he not only took Kingman, he did Chemetics 101. And him and his beloved wife, Akmerit, traveled with you to Kemet to put this beautiful film together. But again, he was prepared because of those sessions that he did in the Shrine of Ptah. And so many other brothers and sisters can tell you how their life has been transformed. Because as I said before, when I started to teach, I got some pushback from the scholars. They didn't want us to practice. I couldn't understand, and it pisses me off to this day, why they didn't want us to practice. They just wanted us to study, walk around feeling good inside, but not build anything with this fantastic legacy. Let me tell you something. The Chinese, they are going there to Kemet, and they're copying our artifacts and producing a whole raft of beautiful T-shirts and bed sheets and pillowcases and curtains from the symbols that they took off the temple walls of our land. You must know this, that our beloved cousins, the Jewish people, that they contribute more money to the world's museums for the preservation of Kemetic artifacts than any other Caucasians on the face of the earth. Why? Because they know the truth of who these people are, in spite of their Babylonian Talmud, where they accuse us of having shamefully elongated penises, the curse of Canaan, and their commentary on that curse, the most anti-Kemetic writing I've ever seen. And I need to say that I find many chapters in the Bible to be anti-Kemetic. Now, I think it's as dangerous to be anti-Kemetic as it is to be anti-Semitic. Why? Because it was from Cam that Shem got so much of what he got. He said so in the Torah. What we gave to Abraham and Sarah, what we gave to Moses, and what we did for Yeshua. And you can say that these folks never existed all you want. David Ben-Gurion, after he became the prime minister, he hired anthropologists, and they went throughout the land looking to see if there was anything that comported to what was in the Bible. They did not find anything in Jericho where the battle was fit. I say Joshua had a fit, but no battle was fit at Jericho. They didn't find one spear, one shield, one arrowhead. They dredged the Red Sea from stem to stern, and they didn't find one chariot wheel in the crossing of the Sea of Reeds. It was not the Red Sea that they crossed. It was marshland, brothers and sisters. They dug up and moved Palestinians off land looking for the palace of David or Solomon. They found nah. Okay? So all the truth is now being discovered, my brothers and sisters. You can now free yourself, because that's the only slavery that you seem to enjoy. Ecclesiastical slavery, you can free yourself. This is the age of I know. Knowledge, I always say, when knowledge comes on the scene, belief must sit down. But not just knowledge, knowledge applied and knowledge practiced. You will be doing yourself the greatest favor. And please, I'm going to share a little secret with you. On the 22nd of August, my birthday was August 9th, but on the 22nd of August, I was led by Set through a doorway, and Set tried to steal my heart, and my heart is my mother, my heart of my coming into being. That Saturday morning, the day of Set, the day of Saturn, I woke up with a pain in my chest, and I called my son, and my beloved Sakara was here, and they called an ambulance, and they took me to the Presbyterian Hospital down on Gold Street, and they told me that I had a heart attack, that I had a blockage in one of my arteries. But by Monday, I had arisen. Oh yeah, you cannot keep Heru down. And the people at Wiley Hospital, the Presbyterian Hospital, is known as, what is that college that Anikan Jabari graduated from again? Upstate New York. Taki?
No, I'm not sure. I was
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
Hunter College. I know he taught at Hunter College. I know he did some of his at Hunter, but I got to get back to you on that one.
I don't know why but anyway, this hospital is the same hospital that they took Bill Clinton to have his heart situation. Anyway, they found that I had a blockage in one of my arteries. But guess what? When I went to the hospital the first time, they took my pressure, and they said it was 123/73. I said, that's high, because all my life, my blood pressure has been 120/70. It never moved. So I said 123/73, and here you say I have a heart attack? Well, they said, well, you are a 79-year-old man looking like you're 50. I said, thanks for the compliment, but the fact is I've been on this earth many times because I have work to do here. But it wasn't time for me to leave, so I was well prayed for. Jabari and Anika came down, and they prayed for me, and so many of my brothers and sisters, the Temple of Anu, Rasan Kukapir, and Sister Mbara, who is the Hemet Tepi of that temple in Newark. They all, and so many of my brothers and sisters, send their prayers and sent their rays of energy, and trust me, I absorbed all those rays, and I was healed. In addition to help from the terrific staff at that hospital. On 68th Street, I looked out my window from the ICU, and there was the river. And I said, oh, I'm by the Nile. But it did not take me away, because here I am. And I have this stent in my artery now, and I have to take some medication so that my body does not refuse this this implant that I have there. But still have some time left. I know I have more time behind me than I have in front of me. And I'm now anxious to write my book because people have been begging for my book. And I've written introductions and afterwards to many of the books of some of my students. And but my crowning glory was what I wrote in the Sacred Woman's book. And I also wrote a chapter in Queen Afua's first book, Heal Thyself for Health and Longevity. You can find that chapter. It's called the Mesu Heru. It deals with the 4 organs that were taken out of the body and preserved in the tombs, which was a clue to us that we must preserve these organs while we're alive. So yes, I must say that was quite an experience, being almost at the door of no return. But here I am, and I give thanks because I have much work to do. But my work is my play. That's why I call it Joy Ari. I don't call it jewelry. I call it Joy Ari because joy and Ari means to create, to do, or to make joy. Because once people discover the beauty of their culture, when they start to wear the implements of culture, like for instance, this ring I'm wearing of the king, okay, with his, notice, the cobra and the vulture, okay, Wachit and Nekabet, the north and the south. By the way, it's about right brain and left brain. It's about the internal marriage of intuition to intellect. They must work together. We have to be ambibrained, the way we used to be ambidextrous, using both hands. And right here on my thumb, I'm wearing Heru, the falcon.
Hey, Baaba Heru,
This,
before you get into the
yes.
Heru, you can go back to Nekbet and Wajet and the right and the left, intuition and intellect, and explain which one represents what.
Well, Wachit is associated with the northern region of the of Kemet, and and Nekabet with the southern region. Now, Nekabet, the vulture is used to symbolize Nekabet. She is, everyone knows, well, not many people know, that the vulture maintains the ecology of the desert. And the vulture is like the mother par excellence because it would prick its own thigh and allow its young to drink its blood if there is if the desert becomes so parched and dry and the water holes dry up, the female vulture would prick its own thigh and allow its youth to drink, the chick vulture to drink its blood so that it may survive. You see, there are 2 blossoms, the lotus and the papyrus. The lotus from the southern region, the blue lotus specifically, and the papyrus from the northern region. Again, the lotus is symbolic of rebirth. The lotus has a peculiar habit. The blue lotus rises from in the morning from underneath the water, and it opens up its petals to receive the light of Ra. That's the reason why it's said in our legacy that Ra is born in the petals of a lotus. And we know the lotus has been part of the Indian mysticism of India for years. But the first lotus master is Asar, because when he sits, you would see he's sitting on a pond of lotus on a plinth that represents the cubit system of measurement, the Ma'at, which is the male aspect of Ma'at, measurement and order. And when we speak of right and left brain hemispheres, I cannot encourage. I used to teach our students to copy the Neteru with their right hand and their left hand. One thing you'll discover in trying to wake up the ability of your right brain, which has been put to sleep because Western culture has forced us all to be right-handed. Why? When you only use your right hand for everything, what happens? You keep you stay only on the left side of the brain, intellect. You put the right brain, the place of your imagination, the place of your intuition, you put her to sleep. This is the mother side on the right brain. And you know there is the central column. By the way, you have to have Kaba Kameni explain to you in detail. I cannot say that I'm a scholar, a scientific scholar. I'm a humble artist and a musician. But the fact is that I know enough to know that when you awaken both hemispheres and you, because to do what we do, what I do, especially when it comes to time travel, when it comes to star travel, it's good to be able to visit the mother side of your intuition in order to get the images that you will need to be recognized to the places that you would go. You see, when I first went to Kemet, I'm walking around the pyramid fields of Giza, and the guide said, he said, "You know where you're going?" I said, "Of course I know." He said, "How?" I said, "Because I come here all the time." Why do you think the bar bird has a human head? Think about it. They interpret the ba to be the soul. But you see, the ba is your spirit traveler. It's your consciousness that has wings that can fly to wherever you want to go. And I can't, you see, the phenomena of spiritual life is not something that you should really talk about because it'll seem like you're bragging and people get jealous. And then they'll accuse you of being crazy and woo woo. Okay? But the fact is, there's a whole world of reality in the hidden realms that we call Amen, that we say Amen at the end of our prayers, not knowing that Amen is a zone of mystery that you are free to investigate once you have stepped back into your mother's and father's African house. And by the way, I call it Africa. Af, the flesh, Ra, the hidden sun, Ka, the soul. That we, people of the sun, we are the flesh and the soul of the hidden sun. And that hidden sun is what they call Sirius B, Portolo, the one that orbits our mother star, Ast Sepedet. All right? You see, we have to claim the totality of our beingness, not just our earthly life, but our cosmic life. One day, the essence that made you was breathed in by your mother and went to her egg. The essence that made you was breathed in by your father and went to his sperm. And here you are, a child of the cosmos who was captured by the breath of your mother and father. So you must cultivate the breath and remember to do breathing every single day. Take some time out to do some gentle breathing. It's best if you are out on the outside. I've become somewhat of a monk, and people tell me I need to get out more often. And the summer is here, and the fall is nice when the leaves are beginning to fall. I like to be out at that time because I usually go to the islands about 2 or 3 times a year because I go there to get into the ocean because over the years of working in metals, I've taken up a lot of metal in my body, and the ocean is the one thing that pulls it out because I feel different when I come back here. And so I would recommend I cannot get in the waters in New York. It's too cold. I'm a tropical being. And the waters are not as clean as the waters on the islands, which the tourists, I am sad to say, are messing up. Because when those big ships come to the islands that I grew up on, they're ruining the ecology of those islands. I used to go to the beach and when I was a boy, and there we would see beautiful tropical fish, orange fishes, purple fishes, turquoise fish, red fishes, blue fishes. Now, not one. Suntan lotion has killed them all. So yes, people are very hospitable and they come and they spend their money, but they ruin the ecology of our beautiful islands, which they are gentrifying at a rapid pace. They are taking over those islands, and when they start to stamp my passport, I would know that the islands have been lost to the indigenous people who have kept those islands going all these years.
Baaba Heru, do me a favor, could you just shift to the right, just slightly?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Craftsmanship. We talk ancient Nile Valley mystery systems and how that's connected to secret societies of today. And we know that this skill set was passed down from initiate, so forth and so on. Can you tie that into what you do today and your ancient and your skill and your level of craftsmanship and how that's connected to the Nile's mystery systems?
The truth is that in addition to learning what I did by doing it, I used to go to the museums, and the detail on so many of the carvings, I used to, in my mind, I used to follow the hand of the ancients who carved those scarabs, who carved those ankhs, and who made those beautiful golden sandals. The faces and the lips of the ancestors carved in stone. I would, in my mind, with my chisel, mentally follow the hammer and the chisel of my ancient ancestors. I cannot explain. It's very difficult to explain and not sound like you're gone mad. But it is something that happens when you confront the art of the ancients. And if you are ardent in your pursuit, the doors will be open to you, and you will discover that you've done this before. And that's what has happened with me, because sometimes I don't sign my work. When I first started, I used to put my initials. I don't do that anymore because it's recognized all over the world now. And because I cannot take personal credit, I'm serving the ancestors because I'm Heru, and Heru must avenge the wrongs done to his mother and father. Heru nech ratef henamut, that Heru avenges the wrongs done to his mother and father, the isfit that has been done to them, that has been done to their legacy, the slanders and the defamation of our ancestors as pagans and heathens by those who benefited from contact with those people. So yes, I will tell you this, that people speak bad about masonry, but you cannot speak bad about operative masonry. You may have your criticisms of speculative masonry, but lay off my ancestral works, who were operative masons, who were builders, because many of the structures in this land of America were built by initiates who remembered the ancestral ways. You did not bring people, you didn't bring slaves over here. You brought nobility over here and you enslaved them. Let's tell the truth of how it really went down, y'all. Okay? We were never slaves. We were a people, prisoners of war who were enslaved. And how did that happen? We cooperated. You know how we cooperated? By some of the same shit we're doing today, by having quarrels in our own house, by pitting the young against the elder, the men against the women, the light skin against the dark skin. We were still doing that shit in the Nile Valley, and people took advantage of our divisions. They did not divide and conquer us. They observed our divisions and they took advantage of the disunity among us. The same thing happened to the Nijis over here. The same thing happened to the Native Americans. All the Native American nations were at war with each other. And so they were easily conquered because they were not united. I hope we have learned our lesson. We had better learn our lessons because, as you can see, Breonna Taylor, as you can see, George Floyd, I mean, I can call the names. There are some folks who they think they've got some plans for us. But guess what? Our star mothers and fathers of the cosmic realms are bringing some retribution here on this land. So those of you, you may want to hold on and cling to your guns as the solution, but I'm telling you, no, no, no. There's something more powerful than the gun. But you must learn how to call forth these powers. You've got your voices, but you You lend your voices to singing the hymns written by slave masters, like that lovely song that you love so much, Amazing Grace. Yeah, Grace, you have been really amazing because you have tried to put our Ma'at to sleep, and your face is now up in front of the courthouse with a pair of scales in your hand, pretending to be blindfolded, while my people, my brothers and sisters, are filling up your stinking jails. And then you say, well, where are the men? Oh, absentee fathers, the fathers are not in the home. Why? Because you got them being slaves, fulfilling the requirements of your 13th Amendment. Okay? And you complain, oh, the women are throwing away their babies. Listen, conscious people are thinking twice about bringing life into this mess that some very, very clever people have created for themselves. But guess what? We have been very successful in bringing some education, not only to our Caucasian cousins here in America, but all over the world. You finally are listening. You finally are realizing what has been done to us as a people. But we are the most resilient people on the face of this earth. And if you destroy us, you will destroy this earth because we are the salt of this earth. This earth needs the one you call black. And I don't like that word because it conceals the mantra lack. We are not lacking anything. We are not be lacking. No, we are not. I'm kamur. Come, the ancient word for what you call in that flat, non-resonant word black. However, I must respect you because you have made that word BLM. So I support that. But I don't like the word that you've chosen to call yourself because in their dictionary, it's everything that's sordid, it's everything that's negative, while the one that they have chosen for themselves, white, which is a patent lie. There are no white people on the face of earth. If you want to see a white woman, I would suggest that you go take a plane and you go to England and go into the museums and you look at the Papyrus of Anui, which is in the so-called Egyptian Book of the Dead. And there you will see Tutu, the wife of Anui, who was the keeper of the treasuries of the temples of An, the temples of Anu, that she is painted milk white. Why? Because she was with her husband in the spirit world. You see, when the African puts on the white clay pipe and he begins to dance and the drums start to play and he goes into spirit to visit the ancestral realms, he wants to be recognized as a luminous being. That's why he put that white paint on his face or her face. That's the real white man and woman. But when they wash that face, they are the color of ebony to gold. We honor all of our shades. And sisters and brothers, stop your caste system nonsense. Don't follow the Indians of India, the Hindu who have created the caste systems of the Varna system that even have the untouchables creating a subclass among them known as the unseeables. Can you imagine that these people, you're not supposed to look, and another set below the untouchables called the unapproachables? Don't you know that Hitler learned everything he needed to know to create the Nazi party and the persecution of the Jewish people from the Hindus? Didn't you know that? Huh? Did you know that your hero, what's his name, Gandhi, was not fighting for the freedom of South Africans? He was fighting for his caste, for those members of his caste, the Kshatriyas. Okay? So the Brahmins, forget about them. If an untouchable was coming down the street He had to avert his eyes. He could not even look at the so-called Brahmin, the light-skinned guy from Persia, okay, who came and invaded and slaughtered the natives of Sind, okay? Let me tell you something. If you do not know some of these things, you will be forever lost. But when you have knowledge, but when you apply this knowledge to waking up, you will discover a freedom that you have never known in your life. And you can do it without sitting in, without waiting in, without laying in. All you have to do is open your books, and now you have access to the internet. By the way, our name for the divine is inter, or some say Neteru. But guess what? You can access this divine knowledge because it's in your DNA. But you have to overcome your fear of piercing the veil of the subconscious realm, because it's in the subconscious that your resurrection will come. Because as Baaba Heru teaches, that the subconscious realm is the zone of Asar, and Asar is the Lord of resurrection. You can resurrect yourself, and by the way, that's why you are here in the West, in order to effect a Western sunrise, a sunrise of beauty, a sunrise of joy, a sunrise of a great awakening, which we must birth with our knowledge applied. So, beloved brothers and sisters, I think I've ranted enough. And Taki, if you have anything else that you want to hear from me, I'm at your service, but I think I've said enough.
Just one thing for me, Baaba Heru. We try to have you shift to the right a little bit. If you can just maybe turn your computer, because your body's coming in kind of half screen. And we don't have much more for tonight, but I wanted to just kind of, if you could, explain how you crafted the Ankh in your hand. Like, what's the mechanisms that you use, the science that you use to actually make the Joy El Re that you have.
Okay, well, this particular Ankh.
And before you do that, because they can't really see it, could you just maybe shift to the right or turn the computer a little bit? That's better. There we go.
Okay, good. All right, all right. There we go. Is that better?
Yes, sir.
All right. You see that? You see that guy in the painting behind over my shoulder?
Yes.
I call him the reluctant angel. He's in a Kemetic heaven, and he's resting because he says, "Them folks down there work me to death. They're not listening, but I'm gonna have to take a rest before I resume my trying to save them from their madness." So I like that picture, and it was done for me by my good brother, good brother Al, and it's a beautiful painting because I've always felt when I was a policeman, a woman who I was taking to the G building said to me, "You are the angel Elysius." I said, "Well, you know, ma'am, I like the idea of having wings because I like to fly." Anyway, yeah. Um, so you were asking me again?
The young. Just if you can briefly explain
Okay.
how. Okay.
Well, this particular Ankh I did directly to the metal. I got rods of brass, rods of copper, and I used silver solder to join them together. And um, sometimes when I was a police officer at at the time from 12 to 8 in the morning, when it's quiet, nothing is happening, I'm under a street lamp, and I would have my files inside my hat, my little files, and I would be under the street lamp carving. So all the carvings you see on this was done by a file by hand. Okay, and then when I was done for the night until the next night, I would put it over my handcuff case because I carried the Ankh on my handcuff case and the gun over here. And when I was told by the sergeant, "You can't carry that thing," I said, "Sir, as long as I'm going to carry this tool of death, I want to carry the tool of life."
So
And
how long have you had that particular Ankh?
this Ankh, I would say, is at least 40 years old. At least, yeah.
And why those particular metals and their intersection? Any particular
Well, to
reason
tell you
why?
the at the time, I couldn't afford silver or gold, and I used to use these metals because copper is a very powerful conductor of spiritual energy. But even more powerful than copper is silver. Silver has the highest conductivity of all metals, higher than gold, higher than copper. And copper responds. It's a it's very sympathetic to the body, especially the joints. You know. And I love the color of copper because, you know, a lot of us were copper colored, right? And you see the paint that we use on the temple walls have that same shade. And but from ebony to gold is the shades of our people. So that is so. And I used to, when I started to make ankhs, I would give them away to people who I saw that were doing work, and then after I've given away several of them, about 14 people who I'd given ankhs to had a meeting and they called me. They said, Baba, we must have some standards for people who carry the ankh. He says, because some people are using the ankh to get over. So I said, well, so they put me on the strict law that I had to go through a process. In order to get an ankh, you have to have been an initiate in a shrine. These are the only two ways you can get one of these. You can't buy them. I don't care how much money you offer me. If you have not gone through a process or you have not done work to lift up the consciousness of our people, I cannot give you an ankh. So the elders used to get ankhs from me, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Ivan Van Soderma, Alpha Numsa John, you name it. All of these beautiful people received ankhs from my hands. And, um, and the others have been initiates who came through Chemetics 101. If you go to the Temple of Anu, or you go through that kind of initiation where you learn, you study the glyphs, you read the ancient writings of our ancestors, the Proverbs of Ptah-hotep, the Kemetic book of the coming forth today from night, miscalled the Egyptian book of the dead. If you do the work, then you can write a letter, and you don't write the letter to me. There is a beloved queen sister. Her name is Kaitha Het Heru. She has been with me since 1980. I remember I was coming off the stage of City Hall, of of the City College. I had some, because I also carve wood, I had some wood carvings of the symbols of Kemet, and I was on the stage teaching people about the eyes of Heru, about the Ankh, about the scarab, and all of these things that I've carved out of wood. And when I was done, I was approached by this young lady, and she gave me her card. And she said, you are the brother that a brother told me I must meet because we both dress funny. Because in those years, I was putting on anything African until I found a way that I found tailors who could do exactly the designs that I wanted to wear. And she said to me, she said, I'm a craftswoman, that I weave cloth. I weave Kemetic cloth. And she was wearing an eye of Heru and a fabulous ankh. And I said, I looked at this woman's eyes and I said, oh my gosh, I've met Het Heru in person. And that's another thing. Right here in America, I have met Neteru walking, elders who fulfill the principles of what a neter is, what a divine principle is in manifesting certain qualities that are divine. And I, I can name names, but I will save that for my book. But I have met living Neteru, and Kaitha Heteru is one of them, okay, who have embodied the principles of the ancients, who wear it, who talk it, but most of all, who live it, okay? And she not only weaves cloth, but she has a kiln where she fires different clay pots, and she calls a she pot. So I want you to go online and check her out. Her name is Kaitha Heru, and she is the keeper of the temple beautiful. And so when you want an Ankh, after you've done your Comedics 101, or you've gone through Initiation, Temple of Anu, or the Shrine of Ma'at, if you want me to create an Ankh, you have to write a letter to the keeper of the Shrine of Heru, Kaitha Heru, with a carbon copy to my person, and she will go into her oracle, and she will let the initiate know whether they have passed the test of and are worthy to receive the Ankh. And she has a little case with some who did not make it because the oracle said no. And that's another thing. You see, long before we use shells or coins or cards for oracles, we depended upon women who were sensitive to the cosmic messages coming from the realm of Amen. And they were the ones who would tell us what our fortune would be. They would know when a king was born in the village. They would know when a healer was born in the village because they had that sensitivity. And from when they were children, they were pulled aside and they were cared for and they were massaged and they were really well taken care of and educated in the Per Ankh that was attached to every temple. Every temple in Kemet had its university, known as the Per Ankh, or the House of Life. And that is where our ancestors went for their schooling. And so Moses, if he ever lived, went to the Per Ankh. He had to. Yeshua, likewise, when he, according to the book, inquired in the temples of Egypt, he went into the Per Ankh, you know? And
So, Baaba
so
Heru, people are commenting on your the kepper you have, the kepper necklace you have. Is that something you crafted?
this one, no. This I got on my first visit to Kemet. I found it in one of the shops in Khan el Khalili. You know where
Kind of
that
clearly.
is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I went to that's a mystical place. They have alleys all behind the mosque of Ali. They have all these caverns, and sometimes fights are taking place back there. People are getting stabbed. A whole bunch of crazy stuff goes on in those alleys. But I found this in one of the shops, and I built this. See, in the back I have an ankh there because this is a symbol of resurrection. And I tell you, on my birthday, I started to wear this scarab because I had not worn it for years. And I must have known something was coming because I began to wear this. And when when I had that pain on the 22nd of August in my heart, I realized why I was wearing this scarab because it's made of turquoise. And turquoise is the stone of Het Heru, Hathor, as I call her in the Greek vernacular. She's divine love. And this is a stone that mirrors the color of the heaven and the ocean, the turquoise waters. And so I said to myself, look how I've been protected by the divine love with the stone of Het Heru. You see, all of these stones have powers, but you have to meet them where they are in order to activate the energies that are dormant in them, in the crystals, in in um, in rubies, in in emeralds, in the corundums, such as the white sapphires, the blue sapphires, all of these, and especially the amethyst, that purple stone. It has the highest vibration of all of the stones, you know. And don't be afraid of diamonds. Diamonds are the highest form of crystal. And you can program your mind with diamonds. You depend upon them for your computers. You depend upon them for your radio crystals. Diamond crystals are very important. And so don't, if you come across a good diamond, be sure that you cleanse it of all the stuff. And people say, well, I'm not into diamonds. Well, guess what? Um, are you into yourself? Are you not more precious than diamonds? Oh, but diamonds have blood on them. Yes, but don't you have blood on you too? What about those slave ships? What about those plantations? Are you throwing yourself away? Don't let people take your power from you. Reclaim all that belongs to you. They have stolen enough, and it's time that they give it back. And guess
Ashe.
what? You better believe.
So Baaba Heru,
Yes,
we
sir.
have a couple questions. I know we've been on for a while, and I don't want to keep up too much more of your time, but there are a few questions from the audience. If you so please, can we ask those questions?
No, I'll do my best. I hope I can answer them. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know.
Okay,
Go
we
ahead.
want to just make sure we get the permission first from you. So we have a question from uh, from Unmask Bee Hunt by Honey. What books can one read to activate your African mind?
Oh my gosh.
You want to give
If
a
if
few?
I were to start,
You
I
want to just
would
give
give a
us
few.
about five?
Okay. Well, for someone new who wants to know, I would say um, you need to have the books by Anthony Browder, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. That's a good beginning for someone who is coming into this new, because he shows how the West has stolen so much of our legacy, and that we must take back. Um, Seven Little White Lies by my one of my students, Brother Jabari, who is the keeper of the shrine, and with his beloved wife Anika of the Shrine of Ma'at in Harlem. The works of Sheikh Anta Diop, African Origins of Civilization, Myth or Reality. The works of Theophile Obenga, Ma'at. The works of Maulana Karanga, his Husia, a fabulous book. The Husia has so many of the prayers and utterances of our ancestors. You will also need to get a copy of the so-called Egyptian Book of the Dead by Wallace Budge. I want you to get that one specifically because you're able to follow the glyphs along with the transliterations. Now, know this: Wallace Budge, a lot of these Englishmen, they were Englishmen, and so they used Shakespearean language, the these and the thous and the thys instead of you and yours. But if you can get past that, after a while you will catch him making errors. If you stay with the writing long enough, it'll begin to open up to you. I can't explain. I just can't explain how it happens. But because it's already registered in your DNA, there's a little window that will begin to open. It becomes wider and wider the more you apply yourself. You ask any of the greats who study the Metronet what happens to them. Ask
So,
Mfundishi. Ask Sister Raketi Amen.
so on the note of the Metal Nature, we have a question from Omar. Can you talk about the spiritual importance of reading the Metal Nature? Because I see we started to go that way, and we can keep it brief. I know you were going that direction, but Omar asked that question, so I wanted to tie it into what you were just saying.
Not only reading the Metroneter, but making every effort to articulate the sounds of the nku, nkur. You see, I have esoteric ways of pronouncing certain words in order to get maximum energy from sound. As a musician, I'm telling you, and you should know this, sound is registered in your skeleton, in your bones. Where is your blood manufactured? Inside your bones. So when you sing, you are ennobling the totality of your skeletal structure, and you are making your cells come alive. So when you try to read the metuneter, the I would suggest that you chant it, not just read it with a talking voice, but sing song it. For instance, if I'm going to say, Amasuen panker, sauksumen panker, au kuaura maketi parura. Give yourself to the divine. Keep yourself daily for the divine. Do it tomorrow just as you do it today. You see, when you sing, when you chant it, and you know the Roman Catholic priests, you hear them chanting. Where do you think they got that from? They copy our stuff, they copy our attitudes, and they take it and pretend that they got it, that it dawned, that they were inspired, and it dawned into their consciousness. A bunch of thieves and liars. Okay? They got it from you. You are the mamas and papas of this earth. Don't you ever forget that you are the elders of this earth, and you must be respected as such. And though they may try to bust you down and make you into that phrase that you have now assumed is a term of endearment, no, it's not. I'm sorry to tell you, it is not endearment. It was put on you. And don't come to me with the crap that, well, you know, it's about the Niger River. Yeah? No, no, no. You know it. You know you're bullshitting. The fact is, you become so habituated. But that word was was the last word that many of our brothers and sisters heard before they became strange fruit hanging from poplar trees in the south and in the north. So watch your use of these words. You have to decolonize your very tongues. You've got to take certain words out of your mouth. Decolonize your tongue. Free your mouth from uttering the curses given to you by your enslavers. And do it for love of yourself, for love of your ancestors.
So,
Okay?
Baaba Heru, how can people get in contact with you? You have an email address? You want to share your email
Yeah.
address or telephone number? People can contact
Oh,
with you. People
sure.
asking about
You can
spiritual
call
systems. People want to they want to communicate with you directly. How do they do that?
212 343 9706. That's 212 343 9706. And you can contact me if it's for business. Um, you can contact me info, like information, info at S as in Sam, O as in over, Patah, PTAH.com. Info at SOPatah.com. If you want to get me direct, my email is HARS, HARS, Joy Ari, JOYARI, harsjoyari at gmail.com. Hars is more like Heru Ankh Ra Samaj, so, or Sepata. So Hars, by the way, the Romans used to refer to Horus as Hars. And it just so happens that my name um, comes out to Hars when you just use the primary initials. So harsjoyari at gmail.com. You can get me personally. People always amazed that I pick up my own phone. I said, what's that about? I'm just folks. I'm you. I'm your brother, your elder brother, but I'm your brother. So I don't hide from my people. I'm here. And I want to thank you all for making it possible for me to pay my rent during this COVID time for the first time without having to go into my own pocket, because you must know this, brothers and sisters, that I am here out of sheer determination not to close my doors, because I had to wait for you to wake up. Right now, all you basketball players, all you folks who got all these gold chains around your necks, I want to introduce to you legacy links. On this chain here, I have the feather of Ma'at. I have the Ankh. The theme of this chain is living in truth. It's not a chain, it's a link of your legacy. So the chains that you have, all those Cuban links chains, I want to slice through them and insert a legacy link. And I want to slice it another inch and a half above that where I put the Ankh, and I want to put in a Ma'at feather. I want to slice it another half an inch or another inch, and I want to put in an eye of Heru. So I want your chains to be broken with legacy links. And I got that copyrighted, so don't even try to steal it. Okay?
You heard it here first. Support the elder. Give him heartbeat props. Please go down to the studio of Patah and show your love. It's very important that we do this. You heard the elder say, you know, the first time he's able to pay his rent without going into his own pocket. We shouldn't have things like that. Make sure we go down there and support him. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Baaba Heru? Like in closing, anything you're working on? Anything coming up?
Yes, let me see. I'm supposed to be on with next Thursday with Philip Shock Matthews, that fabulous brother from in California, who has his platform where Kaba Kameni lectures, and where he's doing the presentation of chapters of the book Spirituality Before Religion. He is a very worthwhile brother to go in and join his platform, subscribe to his platform. And now that the great Taki is on his platform, we're going to likewise be supporting him. And so let's drive people to his platform. And I know that when you see HAPI, you're going to want more. So, Taki, you better get your traveling shoes on, because we ain't done with you yet, brother. There's some more. There are some more HAPI films to come. You've got HAPI 1. We're going to be looking for HAPI 2 and 3 and 4. All right?
Yes, sir. Proceed. So
Get
with that,
yourself
Baaba
ready.
Heru, I want to say a tremendous thank you from my own personal self for being a part of the project on many different levels. One, your contribution in the film and out of the film. That
Thank
day
you.
coming to the Studio Patab was a divine day, because we were working with some other people. But one of the things that I had in my psyche was we needed someone that understood the culture, you know. So when we said certain things and just to move in a certain way, so introducing me to Esteemed Heru and Tuti films, it was tremendous and it was divine, because that's what it was really all about coming in that day. Because it was really something that I was thinking about for a while, that the only way it was going to work was to work with someone that
That knew
understood,
the legacy, yeah.
knew the
And
legacy.
but the
It wouldn't
beautiful
work
thing
any other
about
way.
it, the beautiful thing about it is his wife is equally yoked with him,
Yes,
and I like the idea of couples working together like Anika and Jabari. I stopped doing weddings because I said, as long as there's a woman and a man that can marry a couple, I prefer it that way. So balance must be restored all along the line. So that
yes,
was, you were blessed to have those two,
absolutely, absolutely. Even
Ahmed and Seed,
and
yes.
you know, working with Jabari and Anika is very similar, because they are just on the post production piece, just helping spread the word. They're tremendous.
You better
So it's
believe.
always around. It's all the way around. So with that, Baaba Heru, we want to say dua to you, thank you, and if you could just hang out behind stage, so I can just say good night to everyone else.
Okay,
I'd like to
beloved.
say a couple closing words to you.
Thank you.
Okay. All
All
right.
right then.
Shimotep.
Shema Matzat. Oh.
Another great interview. We just wanted to tell everyone thank you for coming out and joining us. It's been a pleasure to get this interview with you guys tonight. As the elder said, please go out, subscribe to the channel if you're not. Subscribe, hit the notification button on YouTube, Facebook. Next screening we have for HAPI is on October the 3rd, Saturday, 7 p.m. You can go to www.hapifilm.com, HAPIFILM, and get your tickets. If you want to bypass that, if that date does not work for you, you can go to the website, to the merchandise page, and you can get a DVD, or you can get a direct digital copy where you can own it right now. You can watch the film right now. You don't want to miss it. It's a powerful piece. It's something that it's new, it's innovative in the sense of way it was constructed. Shout out to Houthi Films, tremendous cinematography, great creative direction. It's a tremendous piece. Also, we want to say that people, you know, if you're interested at the HAPI merchandise, to the HAPI t-shirts, posters, DVDs, Nubian and Tekken, all these different things, movement, and also most importantly, please support the HAPI movement, support the education of the youth, support Black businesses, which is extremely important, like the Studio Patah. Make sure we go out and support the elder. It's important. Cooperative economics is where we stand. And we also must take the pledge to become more financial literate. So with that, I wish everyone a good night, and thanks for joining us. Peace.